Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. My name's Cody Bills, this is Logan Burgess. Today is Friday the 25th. We had the market here mostly unchanged with corn for September trading up 1.5 cents. Soybeans for September up 2.25 cents here. It is kind of interesting, Logan. We did have a yield poll out here from Reuters surveying a number of different commodity companies, and it looks starkly different from the highest yield that we've seen in the past. Yep. You know, what did we see here, and what do you expect coming down the pipe here for the WASDE report?
Yeah, Cody. Well, we are going to get that August WASDE report on the 12th, and you know that's obviously going to be a big focus for this report is how the USDA is going to adjust yield, considering a very good July here in terms of growing conditions, particularly for the corn crop. Take a look here at this slide. This details that poll out from Reuters today. This was of 20 analysts, and you can see here the average analyst in that poll is looking for a 170.4 bushel per acre corn yield, substantially higher than what we saw from the USDA in the July report, and that equates to a production figure around 14.2 billion bushels. So that would be quite substantial if we did receive a yield number like that. The big question for the trade now is what yield number is the trade currently trading. I would say it's slightly lower than this. We'll have to see what the USDA comes out with, though, as I said, on the 12th. Soybeans, if we look at the analyst expectations, relatively more reserved expectations for yield. You can see here 45.5 bushels per acre, up just 0.3 bushels per acre from what the USDA projected in July. And I think that kind of reflects market sentiment right now. There are concerns about the soybean crop maybe being held back by some dryness and a relatively cool August that's projected here from NOAA and a number of other private analysts. So you can see there, really not too aggressive in terms of soybean yield. These are good numbers, though, to keep in mind as we do approach that August WASDE report here coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's switch over to the cash side of this GrainTV here. One thing you'll notice is that corn, for the most part, remained mostly unchanged. It was down about a penny here on average across the U.S. You'll notice that there were areas of slightly more relative weakness and areas of slightly relative strength. Areas of relative weakness, kind of that western part of Missouri, throughout Iowa and the eastern part of Nebraska. Well, let's switch over here to soybeans, because I think this is really the one that had the biggest moves here this week, and it had a lot to do with the fact that a lot of producers, a lot of merchandisers, terminals, and crush plants were switching over here from the August contract into the September or the November contract. Basically, there's a significant inverse in the market, and really when we closed off the week here, yet on Thursday, we closed off the week that spread between the August and the November contract was 96 cents here. So that's very significant inverse here in the market, and what that meant is really the cash bid wasn't able to adjust as much as the spread.
Right.
And so we saw on average across the U.S., we saw soybeans trading down around 11 cents. We did see areas in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, areas that have typically actually been, in the last year, has been suffering from rail logistics problems. Those areas suffered the most here. I think that is kind of interesting. We have seen the number of past due rail cars in that area starting to decline, but really we have a long ways to go before we resolve those issues.
Absolutely. You know, later in the week here we are going to discuss, early next week we'll be discussing that rail situation in more detail. So that's going to be a great GrainTV to tune into. If you are out in the Dakotas or even Minnesota and are feeling some of the impacts of that rail situation that Cody's covered a lot here on GrainTV. So we'll be covering that on Monday or Tuesday next week. In general, though, that wraps up what we saw for a relatively quiet close to the trade here on a Friday. Thanks a lot for joining us on GrainTV. We'll see you back here on Monday.